Hi, my name is Matteo, and I'm one of the co-founder of Glaut. Glaut is an AI-powered software for agile quant and qual customer research. Customer research, one of the oldest dilemma is what to do between qual and quant. What to do between the depth that a one-on-one interview gives the researcher and the statistical validity and breadth that a quantitative approach would lead to. This has always been one of the key questions to be solved in customer research, and we think we can answer it now. Our wedge is AI moderated interviews, or AMIs. AMIs are smart and engaging voice-based interviews that mix the quantitative approach of a survey with the qualitative approach of additional depth and probing and follow-ups to respondent that allow the researcher to collect richer quality information. An AMI will be the combination of structured, closed-end questions, very similar to a survey, and open-ended questions with probing and follow-ups. An additional superpower of AMIs is that they are born in as multi-language. So you can have a Glaut AMI being run in 10 or 50 different languages in parallel, interviewing thousands of people across the globe. This schema reflects what an AMI is compared to a standard CAWI or an IEI. Very similarly to a CAWI, i.e. a survey, an AMI is scalable to large sample of respondents. It is cost efficient and it is available in multiple languages. But similarly to an IDI, an AMI will be based on voice interaction between our software Glaut and the respondent. And the AMI will allow the respondent to speak naturally in their own language, and the software will understand, interpret, and ask additional probing questions to dig deeper in what the person thinks and what they want, creating a very personalized and engaging conversation, a bit like the opposite of a more traditional and sometimes boring, not engaging type of server. Glaut, as a platform, will allow the researchers to conduct end-to-end research projects that combine the power of quantitative approach and the additional depth of a qualitative approach. In Glaut, researchers will be able to design the projects from starting from the brief and going into the details of very complex interview outline. And step number 2, interview hundreds or thousands of respondents across the globe in multiple language through AI moderated interviews. Step number 3, once these interviews have been conducted, analyzing these interviews and turning the raw responses into proper analysis and insights. Step number 4, reporting and communicating the insights to the stakeholders, both internal and external. All right, let me show you now what is the backend of Glaut and how does it appear for our researchers. Here, as you can see, there is a setup page that basically allows the researcher to control the languages that the moderation will be available into, and some other interesting customization mechanisms that allow the researcher to decide if Glaut will speak to the respondent or just the questions will appear in text. And if the respondent sees a microphone as the first option to respond or the keyboard. This gives a lot of customization and control to the researcher based on the hypothesis of each project. Also, we can set up some other parameters, including, for example, redirect links in case the interviews are completed or if people are screened out. We don't have any screen out mechanism here, but we can insert them both in terms of screening questions and in terms of quota management questions. So I'll quickly go through it, but basically these are not set up in this demo, but you can set up if needed. That means that Glaut can handle both quota and screen outs. Also, in parts of the settings, we can activate some very important options. This is probably the one that I will mention here, the uncooperative respondents detector. If this is turned on, Glaut will basically exclude from the answers the participants that are not cooperating in giving consistent and in-depth answers. So in that case, when and if a respondent will reply gibberish or very short answers, Glaut will probe them back and try to ask for more details. And if the respondent keeps not giving these details, then Glaut will exclude the respondent. Let's go back to the setup of the question. As you can see, the briefing is where the researcher can instruct the software on what is the project about, what are the overall objectives and goals, and if there are some, for example, in this case, it's an ad test where we explain within this briefing field what the ad is about. And this helps the software to have the right context in order to perform at its best during the interview. Finally, we can give some more probing instructions and select the tone and style that we want the software to have. Let's then check the different type of questions that we support. As I said in the beginning, Glaut is an end-to-end qual and quant research platform. This means that we support every single research question that basically you can find in other survey programming tools. And on top of it, the AI moderated voice answers. So let's check what the options are. In this case, as you can see, here is a drop down of the different options. The open question is really our strength. That is where Glaut shines, asking open-ended questions and receiving answers by voice. But also, we support select and multi-select questions, rating and Likert scales type of questions, metrics and grids, and asset questions. In the asset questions, the software is asking the respondent to upload an image or video, and these are extremely useful. We want to capture, for example, a video footage of the respondent. Finally, we have created question blocks and features connected to them, like the randomization of question blocks, to allow even the more complicated outlines of survey programming to be programmed on Glaut. Let's check some examples of the questions that we have. For example, in this case, this is an open-ended question where we ask people if they recall the brand being advertised. And if we check here, we will see a branching icon. And basically here, it's where the branch has been created. So for example, in this case, this question is only asked if the previous question, number 1, has been set into yes. Let's check an open-ended question and the probing instructions. In this open-ended question, we're asking people, what do they remember about the advertisement? And here we can see the field that, if turned on, will allow the respondent to be probed again and again over a specific instruction from the software. Then we have other type of questions, like the metrics question, for example. In this case, we'll see from the respondent standpoint, how do they look like, and rating questions where we can select either the NPS type of scale or a custom scale. In this case, it's just 1 to 5. So this is about the project setup and the questions that we are allowing to be programmed on Glaut. Researchers, after the onboarding, find it extremely useful to basically create quickly their outline. Also, we have a project builder, which is a way to create an outline from natural discussion with Glaut itself. Glaut will ask some questions, the researcher answers, and at the end of the conversation, Glaut will produce an outline of questions. But most of the cases, the researcher comes with very structured and clear ideas of what the outline of the interview should be. And this is where the researcher will act in order to implement that. Let's then move the project to test. This means that we are now able to send it to respondents. In case we want to, we can embed Glaut into other software. And this is how we do it. It's called iframing. And basically, it's a very simple way to embed our interview or our questions inside of another survey platform. So on one side, Glaut can be programmed end to end to cover the full research project, and we can put Glaut in different parts of another survey programmed on other survey software. Some of our clients start with the latter, as Glaut being used as an add-on. Some others prefer to program directly end-to-end. Once we're ready to test Glaut, we basically copy this, and we're able now to see in another screen how does it feel from the respondent perspective. All right, let's check then from the respondent perspective, what is the interview experience? This is the visualization that the respondent would have on their laptop or desktop or when opened from a mobile. Obviously, the UX would change and would see multiple screens, and it would be optimized for mobile. The respondent can select the language of choice in order to take the interview and be able to answer in different languages. Let's get it started. So this is an advertising test about a coffee maker, and we are being asked if we have seen the ad before or not. We can expand the image and watch it in a larger screen, and the same would happen on mobile. If we haven't watched the video before, the ad before, so I would say no. In this case, the demo asked us to watch the video because we said we didn't. So let's play it.
Steve. Shh, John, they say with Lavazza, you'll become a maestro.
Yeah, maestro of coffee.
So it has nothing to do with music.
It does not.
Just coffee.
Coffee.
Shall I go again?
Please don't.
Enjoy the pleasure of a masterfully crafted coffee and feel like an Italian barista at home.
Just don't do it.
Discover Lavazza blends now.
I need that one. That is my G flat.
All right, we watched the ad, so we can proceed. Probably the small robot that is in the middle of the ad. What about the robot caught your attention? So this is a Glaut probing mechanism about, trying to understand a bit more in depth what I meant with the robot. It reminds me about some cartoon that I watched when I was a kid. I think the name is Wall-E, and it was basically this robot from the future. It's something cute that made me feel a little nostalgic. I want to show you how it feels. So this is a second probing. How did this nostalgic feeling influence your perception? But I want to show you how it works if we turn Glaut Voice on.
That's interesting. How did this nostalgic feeling influence your perception of the ad?
It makes it as definitely more memorable, and probably gives me a sense of family and warmth.
Statements.
Okay, so now Glaut moved to the next question, which is a metrics question, and gets visualized in this way. I will not spend time in reading the different dimensions, but the point is that Glaut will be able both to probe as an interviewer, but also to behave like a normal survey.
They like it.
So in this case, there is a closed-ended question and so on and so forth. So we can mix both the quantitative side of research and the more qualitative additional depth that the probing mechanism and the open-ended question being spoken out and being answered in natural language is adding to the mix. Let's stop here and go back to watch the results. All right, let's check then the data analysis and the results. So in real time, for every interview that has been taken, we can basically look at the verbatim and listen to the audio files in case the interview was spoken and not written with a keyboard. So for example, let's open one of the interviews. We can go down, see the transcription of all the answers, hear the verbatim if we want to, and download them in case we want to add it.
The coffee cups were the first things that stood out to me.
And put it in a PowerPoint doc just to bring the customer to life. Also, as we can see up here, we'll find some key stats about the interview, the completion rate, the average length, and the split between people that took it from mobile or desktop. We can export all of these data and the verbatim into SPSS-friendly type of files, so that in case we want to, we can upload them into SPSS and analyze them into SPSS directly. Let's now check what the analysis is about. Let's assume that we have conducted the field, we have closed hundreds of interviews, and now we are ready to look into the results and analyze them. First of all, through Glaut, we can perform different type of analysis. That means that the same question, answers, follow-ups, and answers can be analyzed through different lenses. Maybe we want to know what topics are mentioned in the answers. Maybe we want to extract the brands, the commercial entities that were mentioned somewhere in the verbatim, or maybe we want to interpret the verbatim through an interpretative lens, for example, a purchase likelihood. This is an estimate, it's an interpretation. We have not asked people if they would buy it or not, but we can try to assess it based on their verbatim. Similarly, from an interpretive perspective, we can try to estimate sentiment and emotion analysis based on what people said and how they said it. Let me show you a few of these analysis. Let's start with the topics. I'll start with this question about if people remember the ad, what do they remember the ad about? In this case, what Glaut does, it will look at every verbatim and code every verbatim in one or multiple codes. A code is a topic, is basically a self-standing topic that was mentioned in the verbatim. I will say, for example, that the robot, which is what I also mentioned before, has been mentioned 26 times. And what happens is that first Glaut will find the code or codes that are mentioned. And once all the coding has been done, it will group them into a higher level of themes. These themes have to be mutually exclusive and comprehensively exhaustive so that they really group all what has been said and create basically an overlay structure to the analysis itself. Once we have seen the codes and the themes, we can modify them extremely easily. So the point is not that these codes and themes will always be 100% aligned with your hypothesis as a researcher. Every researcher will have different hypotheses about which are the right codes. But the point is that on Glaut, you can edit and customize every single code, merge them, unmerge them, delete them, and so on and so forth. It's very flexible. It's very easy. Every researcher has a high level of control in what they can do and what the output looks like. Once we have done everything, we can also download these data into crosstabs that are very fast to be analyzed in case we want to analyze them through external software like SPSS or Python. However, most researchers do all the analysis directly in Glaut, which supports all the statistical analysis as well. Let me show you how. So for example, we just did this thematic analysis and we can add a breakdown by any other variable. Let's take age, for example. Boom. So here we are with the breakdown of the same topics, the same themes that were analyzed before, but broken down by age. Also here on top, you will find a statistical analysis of the statistical significance of the results shown. Right. Let's move then to another analysis, brand recognition. So in this case, for example, we can see all the different brands that have been identified from Glaut within the verbatim. So in this case, for example, if we click on Lavazza, on the right, we will find every single verbatim that was referring to Lavazza and so on and so forth. Other types of analysis are more interpretative. In this case, for example, we have asked Glaut to analyze verbatim and assess whether the content of every verbatim was actually reflecting what the ad is about. We asked the respondent to describe what they remember about the ad. We gave Glaut instructions about what the ad was, and we asked Glaut to interpret whether the recall was actually clear or not. As I said before, we support different type of analysis, including emotion and sentiment analysis. These are more interpretative analysis that add on the thematic analysis layer that we described before. So now that we have conducted hundreds or thousands of interviews, we have added all the analysis that we thought that were important to perform in order to get to the right insights. What do we do with them? How does everything come together? So what I want to show you next is the report, which is what Glaut created for researchers to communicate the insights that come out of the analysis. So in this case, we have created one report, but basically what a report is a combination of goals, analysis, and interpretation that can be created ad hoc multiple times for different stakeholders. So theoretically, you could have 100 different reports built for different stakeholders. What is important is that in the outline, we have created some goals. And for example, goal number 1 was the ad recall. Do people remember seeing the ad? Which message do they remember? Do they recall about it? And the same goal, we will use it in the report. And what the report does, it will basically be connecting the dots. So the goal that we have included, the goal number 1, was ad recall, which is the same that we had from the beginning. And what we did literally is to drag and drop the analysis that were created on the questions that speak about the ad recall. So from a researcher perspective, I have some goals. I decide which questions to ask. These questions lead to some results, which I analyze. And if I want to answer to my goal, I have to look at the analysis that were created on the questions that were created to respond to the goals. So it's very logic. It's very, let's say, self-explanatory. But basically, what I'm doing here, it's a drag and drop the analysis that belong to the goal. I specify what I want out of this chapter, and I click on Generate Report. And what comes out is basically a narrative story about, in this case, the specific chapter, ad recall. So in this case, as we can see, what Glaut writes is a paragraph, a summary of what the stats, the more important KPIs are, and down below, what are the charts that are more relevant to this case. So for example, it shows here that Lavazza was mentioned 33% of the time with 48 mentions, and so on and so forth. Same happens with goal 2 about the overliking of the ad. Here we can find also some specific verbatim. If I click on a verbatim, what Glaut does, it will bring me directly back to the person that actually said that. And here, what we see is the charts that were created for goal 2, and so on and so forth. But let's say that, for example, in the middle of a presentation with a client, we are asked about an additional question that we haven't thought, that is not in the reports. What we created for this scenario is the reason with data, or ask your data. And this is a revolutionary feature that we think that can really help researchers find the right answers, even when in front of the client, without the additional time and effort to go back to the data, to the Excel, to the SPSS, and run different set of analysis. So let me show you how this works. All right, so let's have a look at how does the Ask Your Data function works. This is basically a chat where we can write any question. Glaut in real time will find the right analysis, will understand what we're talking about, find the right analysis, perform the analysis if the analysis wasn't done before, and give us a reliable answer. And I stress the word reliable because every answer that Glaut gives us is actually linked to the right crossstep. So if we click on it, it goes back to the right data. There is no hallucination. There are no external sources of data. There is just your data set. So in this case, I had a question already prepared. Can you describe who respondents think this ad is referred to? Which is the ideal customer profile portrayed? So in this case, Glaut is trying to understand the answer, going back to the data set, looking at the right analysis to look at, and basically segmenting and breaking down the analysis when needed to give us the answer about this specific question. Okay, so here we're already seeing some answers. Respondents overwhelmingly picture this ad speaking to discerning coffee lovers, especially those who seek premium taste. So 56.9% of respondent placed the perfect customer here, quality-seeking coffee enthusiast. So in this case, I'm curious to see if, what is this KPI linked to. So if I click on it, here is the right analysis that basically had been performed in order to find what are the persona, the ideal customer profile that this ad is speaking to. So quality-seeking coffee enthusiast, 57%, very much in line with what the answer was about, 56.9%. So yeah, that's great. And so on and so forth with the other personas that we are identified in this. So this is especially useful when dealing with customer requests, last minute requests, or when you open back the project after a few months because the customer came with a specific question, and you want to understand what and how this question can be performed in real time. So yeah, this is basically it. As we have seen before, we will start our project in the outline, where we set up the project, we set up the interview question, the quotas, the screen outs, and we basically decide every single parameter that the AMI, AI moderated interview, will be performed on. Once we launch the interviews, we will be able to see all the results in real time on our platform, download them, look at the verbatim, read the audio files, watch the snippets from video, and basically have it in all one platform. Every verbatim that gets into the platform is also analyzed through one or multiple lenses: thematic analysis, brand recognition analysis, interpretive analysis from emotion, sentiment, and any other type of interpretive score. Finally, the analysis fall into reports that go back to the goals that were identified at the beginning and answer to these goals through the combination of one or more analysis that we have decided to perform in the analysis section. And this is how it comes together. We can preview the report, and we can basically share the report to external shareholders without them being part of the Glaut platform. This comes out as, an online document that is very easy to read and to share to other colleagues when needed. I hope this is clear. We'd be happy to answer to any question and onboard you to the use of Glaut when you're ready. Thank you.